So hello and welcome to this Nudgecast, helping your people through redundancy. My name is Jeremy Beament and I'm co-founder here at Nudge, and I'm delighted to be joined today by the two founders of the specialist outplacement firm Transition Peak, and they are Charlie Billington and Linda Gassini. So hi guys, how are you doing?
Hi,
we're good.
Very well.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, absolute pleasure. Really looking forward to this one. So do you mind just taking a moment to tell us a little bit about what Outplacement is, your company and yourselves, please?
Sure.
Sure.
So if we start with outplacement, outplacement is a term for career transition support that companies give to their departing employees in its very simplest form. And Linda, do you want to mention about Transition Peak and what we do?
Yes, of course. So hi, I'm Linda. I'm one of the founders of Transition Peak. I work closely with Charlie. Transition Peak is an online career coaching and training portal that really helps organizations give their employees all the tools and the training material that they need in order to transition smoothly in a redundancy situation. Now, transition has many areas, and the two main areas that Transition Peak currently focuses on are redundancies and retirement. And most recently, we've had interest in the graduates market. So shall I tell you a little bit more about myself and how we met, Charlie and I?
Yeah, that would be great.
I'm actually I actually have a finance background, so you might be wondering, I'm not a coach. Charlie is. We wanted actually to combine our skill set. So my background being in finance and IT, I worked in banking most of my career. We wanted to develop a platform that's super easy to use for HR professionals, and that's immediate and accessible. So all the material that we have currently is online. That reduces the need for speaking to anyone or making payments. Everything is online and everything's accessible through
the perfect. So you've basically taken a more traditional service and you've taken it into a tech environment.
Exactly. And I'm the coach sort of side of the business. So my background is HR consulting and recruitment. I started in. I have approximately 22 years now of experience in the career coaching and the outplacement field. I'm also a qualified ICF coach. I trained 10 years ago to be an executive coach. So career coaching and career transition is my thing. So yes, as Linda said, our skill sets, because Linda's very good on the business side, the IT side, and then we've got my career coaching side. They work well together in running the business.
Perfect. Well, we're with the right people today then, it sounds like. So why do we think that this topic then, helping your people through redundancy, is so timely? Well, with furlough coming to an end in a fortnight, lockdowns ramping up again all over the country, and the UK amidst the deepest recession for 75 years, it's clear that redundancies and joblessness are set to increase. So the ONS, the Office of National Statistics here in the UK, reported yesterday that already 1.52 million people are unemployed. So that's an increase of 200,000 since last year. But according to market experts, this is just the beginning, really. So the economy has basically been kept on life support through the 200 billion plus spent by the government so far, which has sucked up a lot of the pain. However, they've already said that this level of support isn't sustainable. And as the generosity of these programs like furlough decrease over the coming year, unemployment is set to increase to between 2.5 million and 3.5 million on a best to worst case scenario. So that's a lot of people either going on to universal credit or seeking new job opportunities. So a question to Linda: what are the benefits for companies of helping their people through this difficult time?
I can think of so many benefits, and I'll try to be organized as quick as I can. So the first benefit that comes to my mind is really protecting productivity. So on average, in a normal scenario, the UK suffers from a £340 billion loss every year in employee disengagement. So that could be in recruitment costs, loss of productivity, sick days, etc. So this is in a normal scenario. So when you add redundancy situations to it, the employee morale will get affected. And that would definitely, the number of 340 billion will increase. So that's one thing. And by offering the outplacement support in any form or shape will really affirm HR's commitment to the retained employees, not only to the departing employees, because they will see it as a model in case they get made redundant in the future. I'd also like to talk a bit about the return on investment from outplacement support. Now, there has been a lot of studies that were conducted on trying to measure the return on outplacement. And every company will get a specific number on that. However, the return on outplacement is usually measured by two things. One, by closely tracking the productivity for the remaining employees and their performance. So if you take a scenario where you have given outplacement support versus another scenario where outplacement support has not been given, the study in the Journal of Economy and Society has shown that the return on investment for outplacement support is higher in those cases.
Yeah,
so that's
it's
yes.
kind of it's also what I was thinking there when you were talking. It's brand perception is just so incredibly important, isn't it?
Definitely.
Both internally
yes.
and externally, and
absolutely.
People don't want to buy products from companies who are bad. So
yes, absolutely.
Kind of hard and soft savings.
Yes. I mean, you touched on that point, which is basically my second point, is the brand reputation, as you mentioned. So a lot of people now, before accepting any offers, they do their research about their company. They go to websites like Glassdoor, for example, to review how the culture is, how the HR treats employees. So by giving a good reputation, you're preventing preventing this from happening.
Yeah. So what I was thinking there is that what you really want, even in a crisis moment like now, you need a CEO or an HR director and a CFO, finance director, who aren't just thinking about this immediate crisis, but actually, their company in 5 years' time, when the cycle comes around again, you can't just make these very short-term decisions, can you?
Exactly. And you're also preventing loss of talent. With the brand, with the culture, if it's affected badly, the existing talent that are staying will also feel threatened and might leave to a competitor, for example, or to another supplier. And consequently, the position of the firms in the market might change as a result.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, no, that's incredibly helpful. Question to Charlie. So outplacement, I'm sold on this, and it sounds great. I know that there'd be some more cynical, maybe CFOs out there who are going to say, right, show me the pounds and pence, but let's get over that for a moment. With this thing, outplacement, presumably there's kind of good and bad versions of it. What does good look like, and why?
Yeah, sure. And I think when I look at outplacement, I've seen it over 22 years, so it has changed and it has been disrupted, and some new models are coming out which are more impressive than what I used to see. But I think it's quite useful to put it into context of what is inferior, and then what is, what I've seen that is good. So if I start with inferior, I mean, I think bad outplacement is outplacement that isn't used. So it's outplacement that's given, and actually this happens quite a lot, a big benefit package, which is really expensive, and it's either sat on the table, never used, or used in a minimal degree. So 1 or 2 sessions from it. So I think the worst outplacement is outplacement that isn't used. I also am not convinced about, access to 10,000 courses or even access to 100 courses. I think particularly in a redundancy situation, people can get very overwhelmed and not know where to start. So I think that overwhelm and access to a lot of different material might work for some people, but I think majority of people it can overwhelm you, as I mentioned. Again, not being tailored. So yes, people, they might be brilliant on LinkedIn, but they actually would struggle with interview technique. And actually, if you can tailor that outplacement for that individual to have, really good interview technique coaching on top of the basics, then I think that really helps. So very tailored. And also, I think it's important the coach that you're put together with. So some outplacement providers, they will just put you with a coach. Doesn't matter, the personality, the chemistry, what their speciality is. And I don't feel that comfortable with that. I think it's important to work with a coach who's right in your area and the gel is there. So
yeah. Do you mind if I just stop you there? So what I was thinking there when you were talking was that the bit that really struck me there was the personality type, and I was thinking of Myers-Briggs and these kind of personality tests. Is that part of that personalization of the service where you're taking into account things like personality types?
Well, not as such in terms of personality profiling, but what we do at Transition Peak, if we have our online program, but then if somebody wants additional coaching on top of that, I will have a conversation with them and determine which coach I use. So we have 16 coaches who work for us. And if it's a leadership coach, or I've got someone who worked in private equity and they were in-house in recruitment, and they can do specific interview training, then that is where I'd go. So it's more us having a word with them and speaking to them, and then of course they'll make sure that the personality fit is right. But I mean, just to give you an example of not a great outplacement that I've experienced, someone that I know from a professional capacity, we didn't actually work with them, but they work for an insurance company. They were making a lot of people redundant. She had a big outplacement package, and she used one element for CV advice and formatting, which she thought was okay. And then she used one coaching session, and this is out of the whole program. And she is very senior in tech, so very high up in technology. And she was just placed with a coach who was a great coach, but they had been retired for 5 years. And, the gel there in terms of the technology and all that element, it just wasn't the right fit for them. So, yeah, personality, I think, is key. And yeah, I hope that answers your question on that.
Yeah.
And moving on to the good and the positive, what I see is really good outplacement. I think the first thing is to have a process and a plan and really guide people through where they are now and where they want to be and the steps to take. We do that at Transition Peak, but it helps. I think particularly in a redundancy situation where you're a bit lost, there's so much going on, to think, right, I'm going to do my module 1, then I'm going to do my self-analysis, then I'm going to do my CV, then my LinkedIn, and the order that you can work through from the feedback we've got. That structure really helps at a time where it's a bit confusing. I think something efficient, straight to the point, no time wasting. You just need those important elements. I think something practical as well is important. We've mentioned the coaching and the area of need. I think something that's easy, clear, that's got substance and is obviously of good quality, but it's pretty straightforward, easy to access. I do think some self-analysis is really important on in an outplacement position, particularly at the moment with COVID, and in some industry areas being really struggling. You know, it might be that people need to, well, it will be that people need to look at their skill set, what they can do, but tackle other industry areas that are doing, you know, better, or recruiting. Not all the time, but I think that, you know, that is important, looking at your values, your skills, your strengths. So that self-analysis piece. And I think just being supported, you know, being supported by the company and the company caring, but also for the outplacement as well, to be there for questions or queries and supporting them. I think that's what, to me, good outplacement looks like.
Yeah, I think when you were talking there, I really like that. And the bit that I was curious about is that, particularly if someone's been in an organization for a long time, for example, you know, stuff like understanding how to use LinkedIn, which you may have never found a job through LinkedIn before, you know, so important. Is part of this also about giving people a boost to their confidence? Because I can imagine that people are feeling quite low in confidence at that point. Is that part of the coaching that happens?
Yeah, absolutely. And some people need more of that, some people don't need it. So I see a whole range of people, from those who actually have got their head switch on, they're confident, they know what they want next, and they're fine. But then others who absolutely need a boost up in confidence. And I think having a plan and a process and to work through helps. Some people will need additional coaching, and we do resilience coaching, we do confidence coaching, self-esteem, imposter syndrome. So it really depends on the individual. But yes, I think that whole confidence thing is a key element to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, here at Nudge, we've actually created our own redundancy edition of our financial wellbeing platform, and it's for clients to provide to their employees who are sadly going through redundancy. And what we found is that there are three key reasons why clients want to do this. So, obviously, when people are leaving their job, companies want to help their people make the most of their money. And what we're finding is that some companies are offering Nudge to these groups for a year, some to 3 years, and one client's actually offered it to people for 5 years. So it's about that sustainability of people being in control and making the most of their money. Secondly, companies are also, and this ties back to what Linda was saying earlier on, that although it's a really difficult time, forward-thinking companies are looking to maintain their alumni network, and actually that it's important from both an internal and external brand perception. And then thirdly, it's really that stay in touch strategy for companies when they want to re-engage with people down the line when the economic environment has improved. Then actually that person might be perfect for the job again at that time, but they've got a positive view of the organization. So yeah, that's the Nudge Redundancy Edition. And a question to both of you, really, this is my final question. So if you could give 3 top tips to employers who are undertaking a redundancy program, what would they be?
Do you want to go first, Linda, and then
I'll do. Okay, sure. Yeah, no problem. So I think that my top 3 tips would be to provide a program that's accessible and that's easy to use. I think some people are daunted by the idea of outplacement. So having it online and virtual, especially with the COVID, I think is a good idea to start off with. My second advice is to be kind. I know everybody's kind, but kind to your departing employees, to the points that we've mentioned about brand reputation, but also you want to avoid legal battles as well. So if you're kinder to the departing employees by offering them support, they're less likely to sue you. And finally, what else is cost effective, I think is a really important bit. So trying to find a program that is cost effective gives you the ability to help more people, and probably give you a bigger pot to use for something else and to better your business. So these are my 3 tips.
Yeah, nice, like them. And you, Charlie?
Yes, so number one, communication. I think communication is paramount. And just to be clear, to be transparent, I think the message should come from the top as well. I think if you need assistance in that area, there are some brilliant communication coaches who can help you, whether it be in the written form or the oral form. I think communication is really, really important. Secondly, and this is an obvious one, but get good legal advice. I would get good legal advice that is recommended. As we know, there are lots of rules and regulations around redundancies, and I think that should be covered. The third tip is something which I don't think is thought about that often, but to provide support for the people who are making the redundancies. And whether that be HR professionals, line managers, I know quite a few people who are in the position at the moment, and it's stressful. You know, it's a stressful thing to do. Some of them might be your friends, you know, colleagues you've got to know over the years. And I think those HR professionals, their responsibility to do it and go through it. You know, already we're burning out and we're busy and COVID and everything else. But on top of all that, to have to actually relay this message to people and work with these redundancies, it's stressful. So to support those individuals.
Yeah, do you know what? Some incredibly wise words there. And I think the kind of overall impression I've got there is turning the negative into something positive, which is, you know, much needed at this time. So yeah, I hope everyone enjoys listening to this. I personally found it fascinating. Outplacement's not an area that I knew too much about, and you know, it just sounds like a no-brainer to me. So yeah, really appreciate you both coming and speaking to me today, Charlie and Linda. And yeah, everyone out there, have a great day. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Bye.